I'm the Voter Service Director for the League of Women Voters of Palos Verdes Peninsula and San Pedro. And we want to welcome you to this candidate and ballot measure forum tonight. Just a small word about the League. It is a nonprofit organization that works to promote good government and citizen education and participation. We're nonpartisan. We never support or oppose any candidate, but we do take candidate, elected official, or political party. We do take positions on issues only if we have studied them. Civility and discussion of public issues is very important. We ask for courtesy in all comments from our candidates and responses tonight from both the speakers and the audience. This is a program to educate voters. It's not a campaign rally, so we request audience members to refrain from campaign behavior during the evening. We've asked that no campaign materials be distributed until after the forum, and I think some were handed out because that was a little bit misunderstood, but there may be some additional materials later, and I have some that a candidate has given me to pass out as well after the forum is over. I do want to make a comment about the questions that were emailed to me. Thank you very much, all of you who did them. They were wonderful questions, and I got a lot of them. And I wanted to let you know that a few of them have been changed slightly because we're going to really focus on issues and not on individual candidates. And as a result of that, if you sent in a question relating to an individual, we revised it to be able to apply to all three candidates. And all candidates will answer every question. Also, we adjusted a few of the ones that came in because some of them had quite lengthy preface material. And so instead of reading all of that, we sort of pared that down, leaving the question intact. Was there something else I was supposed to say about questions?
No.
No. Okay. I want to thank the PVE Homes Association for their videotaping tonight. You will get information about where you'll be able to see that. We don't know where it is tonight, but you will be receiving information on that. And at this time, I want to turn the meeting over to our moderator, Joanne Waller, who is a past president of both the Torrance and the Palos Verdes Leagues, and a very experienced moderator.
I'll stand up too for this beginning part. Before we go any further, you may have
Try that.
Okay, you want me, oh yes. Okay, you want me to start over? Okay. All right. The format for this evening will be the same for both candidate panels. And that format is each candidate will begin with a 2-minute opening statement. The order of speaking was determined by drawing lots. Secondly, each candidate will now be allowed only 1 minute to answer each question instead of 1.5 minutes because we received too many questions. So we need to get as many questions in as we can. And lastly, each candidate will end with a 2-minute closing statement in the opposite order of the opening statement. I hope you all have picked up your cards and pencils and written questions. We have Linda Herman and Cindy Condom with pencils and cards, so please use those. The timekeepers are in the front row, right over here. Julie Kramer and Barbara Culver. Hold up one of those signs, Barbara. This tells the candidates how much time they have left and when to stop talking. And of course, to my right is Vi Ungerich, president of our league. And of course, you all know Nancy Marr, our voter service vice president. Because this is a neutral forum, and because we have so little time, please hold your applause until the end of each segment. Also, please silence your cell phones. Okay, now we're going to jump right into it. The first person to speak for city treasurer will be John Rea.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming out this evening. You probably know me from the last 10 years on the city council, so I thought I'd tell you some things about me that you don't know. I have a degree in economics from UCLA. I graduated UCLA Law School. I've been practicing law 38 years. My practice focuses on defending professionals when they're sued for malpractice. I also defend accountants in securities litigation, as well as for making mistakes in their audits. I'm currently on the board of trustees of Harbor Regional Center in Torrance, which is a not-for-profit corporation that provides support services for developmentally delayed children and adults in the South Bay area. I've been doing that for 14 years. I'm currently the president. In the past, I've been treasurer and also on the audit committee. I'm also the city's delegate to the California Joint Powers Insurance Authority, which is the city's self-insurance pool, along with about 120 other cities and governmental entities. In the past, I was elected to the executive committee and also vice president of that organization. I gave those roles up 2 years ago when I stepped down briefly from the city council. Currently, the Joint Powers Authority has about $300 million under management. Those are public funds. It's pursuant to an investment policy similar to that of our cities. Our city has a passive investment policy, which basically means purchase a security, hold it to maturity. The Joint Powers Authority has a very active management of their investments, and that's the one thing that I certainly want to look at if I'm elected treasurer. I think I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Jim?
Sitting up here reminds me of how I hated every minute of the 9 years that I did this and the 2 terms that I was mayor. I had this great presentation that I made, and you can see I had to redact it a little bit because my authority told me what I got to say and what I didn't get to say. And I had some really good things to say, but I'm not allowed to say them. When I applied for the job of city treasurer, it was because I was concerned that we'd have another situation where somebody applied and there were no other candidates, kind of what's been happening on city council until recently. And it wasn't that I was all crazy about doing the job of city treasurer. Quite honestly, I don't think the investment side of it's where the game should be played. I think the city treasurer, and if I were the city treasurer, I'd take an active role in looking over the work done by the city council, making sure they were using your money well, and that they were finding every opportunity for new revenues. But I'm not going to do that because when the dust settled, we ended up with 2 candidates for city treasurer. I can't read that. Now you can put it up. 2 candidates for city treasurer, one being my neighbor. And I've told Victoria that I'm going to not be running for city treasurer, so please don't vote for me. I am going to vote for Victoria. She is my neighbor, and she's a real banker, and I think she'll do a great job. But Barbara, I don't know what you held up because I didn't have my glasses on. 1 minute. 1 minute, okay. I think that the job of city treasurer, I can't read that. 30 seconds. when I first got elected, I was 40, and I could read everything. Now I can't see anything. But it happens. But I think that I hope that whomever's elected the city treasurer will spend a lot of time looking over the work being done by the city council, looking for new revenues, and making sure the expenditures are good. Thank you.
Okay, Victoria?
Well, I'm Victoria Lozzi, and I'm running for city treasurer. A little bit about me. My husband and I have lived in Palos Verdes Estates for about 8 years. We have 4 children. 3 of them are away in college, and our baby over there is a senior at PV High. I have been in corporate banking for about 28 years. In the last 16 years, I work exclusively with governments, higher education, and nonprofit corporations, which means that I help them finance projects, I help them to implement efficient banking operations, and I help them manage their investment assets. In my volunteer time, I tend toward the finance role because that's what I'm good at. And that's what I'm passionate about. So as treasurer of the PV chapter of the National Charity League, I helped them kind of stick to their budget and rebuild their reserves because their reserves had gotten a little too low. I also served as vice president of finance on the board of the UC Berkeley Alumni Association, go Bears, and I helped them finance $10 million in improvements to aging facilities that really needed some work. So why am I running? In our city, it seems to me that there's this kind of long-standing tradition, if you will, of the treasurer role being filled by someone moving from the city council, and there's never an election. And I just think that's a bad practice. I think I am running, that sign up. I'm running because I feel strongly about that point. The treasurer is supposed to be autonomous from the city council, and it's supposed to be an independent oversight. So if someone is moving from the city council to the treasurer, by definition, you come into the role with an agenda. It's inappropriate to keep going down this path, I think. There have been some difficult issues in our city over the past few years, and I think the way some decisions have been made and communicated to the residents, that it seems that people have lost confidence in our leaders, and we really need the autonomy that a city treasurer is supposed to have. Being the treasurer is about more than managing the reserves. I am more than qualified to manage that part of the job, but I view the job as more than that. The treasurer should take a strategic view and should really make sure there's a culture of fiscal discipline in the city, and that's my area of expertise. So my pledge to the city is to ensure that all the money is spent wisely.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to go on to the questions with 1-minute answers.
What's that sound?
Some of our questions we have found are the same question, just written in a different way. So we have many duplicates. So we just want to tell you that in advance, and we're going to pick the one that wrote it the best. Okay. Now, some of you may have answered this question already, but this was a question from the audience. It was this person's understanding that the city has reserves of about $9 million. In your opinion, is this reserve level too much, too little, or just right?
Who goes first?
Oh, sorry. Jim, you're going first on this one.
About half the budget's fine. Do you want me to talk more?
Well, if you have something that...
End. Half is fine. That's a good number. You can never have too big a reserve, but half your budget's pretty good. It's a good goal.
Okay. Victoria?
I probably agree. When I saw that, it's about a 6-month reserve. You know, I'm very conservative, so maybe I'd try to inch that toward 9 months, but 6 months, I'd say generally the best practice is 6 months to 9 months of reserves, so 6 is fine, 9 might be a little better.
Okay. John?
We refer to it as a cushion because it's not technically a reserve. We didn't have one for a long time, and the council years back made it a policy to build it up to at least a 6-month reserve on operating expenses. Of course, we'd like to have more because our city does not have a dedicated source of revenue for capital improvement projects. The Capital Improvement Fund gets funded sometimes by budget surpluses. And so if we have enough money to maintain that 6-month reserve, The excess money might be held in reserve, or it might be used to prepay CalPERS obligations, or to put it into a capital account for projects in the city. So it's enough, but we could always use more.
Thank you. Here's our next question. We'll start with Victoria this time. What alternative funding solutions were identified by the Parcel Tax Committee?
Oh, golly, well, I wasn't on that committee. I mean, my sense from just reading the report was that they looked for ways to internally fund that through budget cuts, and I think decided that there probably wasn't enough budget to cut to cover the 4.7 million that we would need to fund the fire and paramedic contracts. So, you know, to my knowledge, they were really kind of just looking for ways internally to generate the money when it wasn't there.
John?
Well, I think you can ask William later on this evening. I recall reading their report and that they'd considered other alternatives. I don't have it memorized what else they considered. The point of appointing a independent committee was to consider all of those options and to come back and make recommendations, which is what they did.
Jim?
They didn't find $1. I can speak some more if you want. When I was on the city council, what I did is I actively looked for new revenue sources. For example, I found $1.7 million that was in Proposition A money, and we earmarked it for the schools, gave it to the schools. In return, the schools took some property that's above the beach club, and which was fully developable as lots. And instead of developing it, it's open space today. When I was on the city council, I'd periodically bring in the people from the flood control district, and we'd show them how much our residents have paid. That's a benefit assessment district. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to get the benefit from the tax you pay. But you don't unless you ask them. So we'd periodically, just tell me when to stop. Okay, so what we would do is we would periodically bring them in and quietly say to them, you know, our residents have paid about $300,000 for the flood control district. What have you done? And they'd look at us and they'd say, well, you know, we have this storm drain we'd like to rebuild. Maybe you'd like to rebuild it. And they go, oh yeah, that'd be a good idea. We'll do that. And I would hope that the new treasurer would continue that practice of trying to find new ways and new money. Thank you.
Okay, next question, this one to John. Some would argue that not voting to extend the fire paramedic tax measure is fiscally irresponsible. What is your opinion?
Well, if we don't vote to extend the measure, we lose that funding source, and we'll have a shortfall, and we'd have to live off of our savings, the money that we just referred to. There's enough money in the bank, so to speak, to tide the city over at its current level of services until the next election could come along with an alternative ballot measure put before the city. But you can only go so long that way, and the money that you spend has to be replenished somehow. It's going to have to come back from somewhere. So.
Okay,
Oh, I'm sorry. You're waving the sign at me there. No, I'll stop.
okay. Jim?
Just a second. Barbara, when you want me to stop, just hold up anything and I'll stop. I don't know what else to do. Okay, the question is, is it irresponsible not to pass the parcel tax? I am the person that created the parcel tax. We had no money. I will be speaking on this for 4 minutes later on tonight. But what I'll tell you now is this. Every city in California has fire and police. They are essential safety services. We would get rid of the city manager, the finance director, everyone else, and keep police and fire. There's people that last time it was up for a vote, they said, no, we're not going to have a fire department if you don't do this. That's crazy. We're going to have a fire department. And by the way, the contract, I don't think they can get out of the contract, but it would be interesting. And what we don't, but here's what I'll be telling you later on. We are the only city that pays for fire with a fire tax. Every other city has it in the 1% they pay, which has been there for 39 years, called Prop 13. Every other city, including, okay, stop. San Pedro, bye.
Treasurer?
I can see the
Victoria?
red.
Well, I think we're in a bit of a pickle here. If the voters vote no, we'll have to spend down our reserves to fund the fire contract, and I am against spending down our reserves. I think, as I mentioned before, I have experience with this, and once reserves get spent down, it's very difficult to rebuild them. If the voters vote yes, then I'd like to see if we could tighten up the implementation of the tax a little bit. So for example, the measure has a sunset clause in 12 years. Well, sunset means it goes away. But just to look, there's no plan in the measure mentioned for how we would pay it down. And as a point of comparison, last time we voted, it was 2007, and here we are 10 years later, and apparently the sunset plan was to extend for another 12 years. So I think maybe if we were a little more disciplined, perhaps we could free up some budget surplus. Maybe the budget surplus, I think, could go toward the fire contract, but I do think we need to find a way to maybe work towards sunsetting that thing, so we're not standing in the same spot in 12 years.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to this question. The questions seem to be all on the same topic. Why is Measure D not part of the overall budget? Jim?
Why is the parcel tax not a part of the overall
No,
budget?
yeah, why is Measure D not part of the overall budget? I'm not sure what the person is getting at, but
I'm not sure what they mean, but it is a part of the budget. You've got this big pile of money, okay? And there's police in there, there's fire in there, there's other stuff. If you take the fire and put it over here, it doesn't really matter how what you take out of there. You take out 4.7 million, and you got 4.7 million in the other bucket, more than you had before. So it is in the budget. The fire contract pays for the contract with fire. Every other city has it paid for out of their property tax, the base property tax that we pay. And so, for example, every city on the Hill gets approximately 23.3% of the property tax dollar back. I guess in government terms, that's good. But we get 11.3% back for 39 years. Now, I would submit that this is crazy. How come we get 11.3% and every other city on the Hill gets 23.3%? Even Hermosa Beach, by the way, gets 20%. Nobody's ever asked for 39 years. If we only would get the same amount of money as everybody else, we wouldn't even need the fire tax. Thank you. You don't have to hold up the card, Barbara.
Victoria?
I think maybe what they mean, trying to figure out what the question, what they mean on the question, and I kind of look at it this way. I do kind of look at the Measure D and the parcel tax and the fire paramedic contract kind of off to the side, I guess, because the funding, the tax exactly offsets the price of the contract. So maybe that's what the person is asking. I do kind of look at that as its own pot, and then the rest of the budget as a more of a general operating budget. So that answers that question.
John?
I don't quite understand the question, but that's essentially correct. I mean, we have this an enormous amount of money that we spend on paramedics and fire, and the funding mechanism for that is this ballot measure that's going to be voted on in March. And that's, simply how the finances are structured here in the city. The city has various sources of revenue. About 2/3 of it, 60% maybe, is property tax. And property tax revenues don't vary very much over time. They gradually increase, essentially. And otherwise, we don't have a commercial base to speak of. We have very little sales tax, no transit occupancy tax. And so we don't have a lot of the sources of revenue that other cities do, which I think is one of the reasons why, somebody came up with the idea of having this parcel tax. So, thank you.
Okay, well, all the questions were on the same topic, and we have answered that topic, so we're going on to the closing statements. And we will start with Victoria.
Okay. So why me? So as I've gone around the past couple months, meeting with lots of people, I've kind of heard one comment over and over again, and that is, nobody ever really wants to be treasurer. Well, I do. I actually want to be treasurer. So it probably sounds crazy to most people, but I love banking and finance, and it's good stuff. So, so I really do. I think people who give years to public service are wonderful, and I'm thankful for them, and they do a lot of the heavy lifting. But I do think we have to break this cycle of people moving from city council to treasurer. I think we need to draw from the smart pool of experienced finance professionals that we have in the city. So I'll go first. As an aside, I do think the new Investment Advisory Committee is a great idea and a great way to pull people into into the city and to ensure some succession planning. So I think that's kind of a way of having a different pool to draw from. I bring what I think is a much-needed new perspective to the treasurer position and to the city of Palos Verdes Estates. I think the treasurer has to take a strategic, high-level view of how we do things, more of a chief financial officer, I think. I will dig into how money comes in and how it goes out. I'll dive into the strategic vision of the city council and the goals of the residents and figure out how to achieve the goals in a way with the financial resources that we have available. More than anything, I am about process and transparency and how things look to our customers and our shareholders, because our residents are our customers, and our customers always have to come first. We have to ensure that there's proper process and transparent procedures when we're making decisions and thinking about decisions. Above all, we're obligated to make sure there's no conflicts of interest, that there's not even an appearance of a conflict of interest, or how do we keep the trust of our customers? You've probably figured out I'm not afraid to speak up, and that's what you want in a treasurer. So my career and volunteer experience have prepared me for the job, and I look forward to serving in the city. Sorry.
Okay, Jim?
I'm waiting for Barbara to put her card up. I don't have anything else to say except if you vote for me, I'll find you and kill you. But I think that it's an important job. I commend the people that want to do it. I didn't want to do it. You don't have to hold the card up. I'm not going to take too long. And I'm going to let John speak.
John?
Thank you. Thank you for coming out again, everybody, tonight. I think I need to make a point about the job of the city treasurer, what it is and what it isn't. The city treasurer is responsible for taking custody of the city funds. This is state government code, and that includes investing the funds in accordance with the city investment policy, which focuses on safety, liquidity, and yield. The investment policy is passed by the city council. A smaller part of the job is basically signing the checks. You can't sign a check as treasurer until the city council approves the payment. Once the city council approves the payment, then you sign the check. In most cities in California, the treasurer is a staff position performed by, maybe it's just part of the job title of someone else in City Hall. It's not an independent office. The treasurer is not the sixth council member. The treasurer does not have the power to oversee the decisions of the city council, or to look for new sources of revenue, or to hold down expenses, or to make sure money is spent wisely. That's not the treasurer's role. Those are the roles that belong to staff members like the finance director, the city manager, and the city council itself. That's what the city council ought to be doing. So I'm saying this so that no one's disappointed when they find out that the treasurer is not part of the budgeting process and is not overseeing decisions of the city council. And I think my 10 years on the council has given me a good experience to do this. It's not my fault that I'm on the city council and running for treasurer. It's just how it's happening. But I know the people, I know the ins and outs of the city, and I think that as working together as a team is very important, in understanding the proper role of the treasurer, what the treasurer does do and does not do is important for the city moving forward. And thank you.
Let's give a big hand to our candidates. Okay, now we got to switch it.
Yeah, tell